This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Do you play FanDuel and feel like you aren't creating consistent money-making lineups? Go over to the DFS Doctors on Twitter at the DFS Doctors and DM them with promo code Detroit Sports to get a free trial for their analytically formulated 70% lifetime profit rate NFL and NBA lineups. The whole purpose of playing daily fantasy sports is to get out there and compete and give yourself a chance to win. So go over to the DFS Doctors. Let them help you. They have analysts on staff that look at the best optimal lineup that you can put out there to win money. So why not take advantage? At the DFS Doctors, promo code Detroit Sports.
CBD is a game changer sweeping the nation. This hemp extract is the natural way to elevate your mood, eliminate aches and pains, reduce anxiety, and keep you sleeping all night long. It can even cut your workout recovery time in half. Get in the game today with 20% off all orders of CBD and lavender products from Lavender Lane, a lavender farm located right here in Milan, Michigan. Just go to lavenderlanemi.com today and enter coupon code Detroit for 20% off your entire order. Guys, look, these amazing products are infused with calming lavender to maximize their effectiveness, meaning your CBD items only take minutes to take effect, which is way quicker than those pills you were about to swallow. On top of it, they are perfect for men and women. Lavender Lane has lab-tested CBD creams, tinctures, and roll-ons that are perfect for any situation, even if you're on the go. Put your health back in your hands by heading over to lavenderlanemi.com and entering coupon code Detroit for 20% off your entire order of CBD and lavender products. What do you have to lose? Your satisfaction is guaranteed or your money back. So if you need lavender gifts for your loved ones or just looking for the natural way to ease your discomfort with CBD, go to lavenderlanemi.com and use coupon code Detroit to unlock these miraculous benefits of CBD and lavender. That's lavenderlanemi.com. And remember, use coupon code DETROIT for 20% off your CBD and lavender products from Michigan's own Lavender Lane.
Is there a sports podcast in Detroit that people are talking about?
Hey, everybody, this is Freddie Cohen of ESPN Radio. When I'm not talking about breaking news or breaking news on ESPN Radio, I'm always a fan and listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
Thanks, everybody, for downloading the latest edition of Doc and Jock. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me, my cousin Adam, the Jock Strozinski. What's up, cuz?
I came limping in here today, feel under the weather, look like crap. You even said, you looked at me, you're like, you look like death. I feel like death, bro. It's horrible. You ever get one of those like stomach bugs? You have no idea what the hell's going on. All of a sudden you wake up in the morning, it's like 3 o'clock, and you're like, oh, I feel so thirsty. Let me go grab some water. You go drink 2 glasses of water. Next thing you know, you're throwing it all up and you got shit coming out the other end too. And you just don't know what the hell's going on. And then on top of it, you got to go to work because the guy who does all the scheduling doesn't schedule properly and he schedules you short. So like you couldn't even get a day off if you needed one. So then you have to work through all of that. The cool thing is you got like awesome coworkers who are like, cool, we'll pick up all of your slack. Love you, Clint. You're the man. Anyways, day 2 rolls around and you're able to stuff some food down yourself. I don't know, late, what was that? Tuesday, Wednesday night, whatever. And you're able to keep it down. You felt great, but still you woke up in the middle of the night and you're just like, oh my God, I want to explode again. And you just want to throw up. And then basically the whole day is just you trying to keep everything inside your body. It's absolutely horrible. It's how I feel right now.
It seems like the last 3 years, the last 3 winters have produced an exorbitant amount of sickness in people, man. Flus, colds, bronchitis. It's horrible around here. I'm thankful. I've dodged it all, and I work with people, so I have no idea how I'm doing it. I think the magic elixir for me is just a lot of sleep and zinc, and it works.
And all the hummus.
And all the hummus in the world.
Hummus.
All the magic hummus you can digest, man, is going through this body, and I'm doing it, man. Working a couple jobs, working with people, podcasting, and I don't know. I'm around germs. I just feel like I've been blessed with
You're
a great.
immune.
Yes, my immune system is amazing. Where maybe stuffy nose here and there, but I come to work and I feel good.
See, originally I thought it was maybe just something I ate. Thought it was maybe food poisoning or maybe just something didn't sit well. But as this has kind of continued on for 2 or 3 days now, and I'm just getting even more and more fatigued and even more and more wore down. And like the other night, I went to bed early. I slept a good 8 hours, and still, all I want to do is just go nap. I just want to sleep forever in a day. And I have no clue what the hell I got going on here. And there's nothing that you can go to the doctor for, because the doctor would be like, oh, it's going to run its course. And you're just like, great, what the hell is it? Because that'd be fantastic if we knew. But dude, this is just, it's unreal. And, at my job, everybody and their grandmother a couple weeks ago was just devastatingly ill. Everybody was. And I was like, all right, cool. And I was just kind of dodging it. I felt like I was in the Matrix, you know what I'm saying? I was Neo, and they're shooting at me, and I'm just kind of like moving all around and dodging the bullets. And now I just feel like I got hit by a Mack truck. I just want to die.
On this episode, we are going to talk about the Detroit Lions and the Pistons. But before we get into the heavy stuff, because you and I got some takes, we got to discuss what people are writing around town and what people are trying to put out there, because it makes no sense. And you and I have to figure it out, because we got to figure out why it's happening, and we got to figure out, is it even realistic in regards to expectation for the Lions? Because I think I'm happy that when I put it out there, I said, wait a minute, is there a realistic chance the Lions are going to potentially be the 49ers next year? And people were like, no, dude. And they were like, okay, I understood, that people were not buying what certain people were trying to put out there. So we'll talk about that in the second half of the podcast. Got to figure out what's going on with the Pistons. But before we get into that, I do want to calibrate, because, sometimes maybe we do see things a little too negative. So last week on the podcast, I put out there that, hey, Dylan Larkin, slightly underperforming. Okay. And the response I got from people.
You got a lot of feedback.
Yeah, I got a lot of feedback. So I want to calibrate with you, because you know hockey and you're watching. Dylan Larkin's having like an okay season, but this is not a captain level season. This is not somebody that's lighting the NHL on fire. Anybody can look around and go, wow, yeah, he had a good game. He's scoring goals. So you're just going to message me, those that support Dylan Larkin, and just say, oh, look at every time he scores a goal that he's doing something special. Well, all you got to do is just go to the stat sheet and realize that other top flight NHL athletes, typically, from what I understand, are a point a night performers. Just 1 point a night. So is Dylan Larkin currently scoring an average of 1 point a night? No, he's well below that. And is he on the ice for a lot more goals than what's being scored against the Detroit Red Wings? No, he's a minus 16, which is, from what I've understood, is kind of a measure of, hey, if you're on the ice when the other team's scoring, that doesn't bode well for you and your defensive responsibilities. Now, granted, the Red Wings goaltending situation is terrible and the defense is horrible. And it's not, sometimes you do get a minus when you just step on the ice and you do get credited for it. But by and large, the Detroit Red Wings, top to bottom, not a good squad. Dylan Larkin not having an all-star caliber season. Am I right? Or was I way off with that take? Now, granted that, most people aren't going to trade him because he's so young and that he's got some skills. Yes, he's not a talentless player. But at the end of the day, you're losing with him. So I'm not going to miss him if he's gone, if he's traded.
You could make the argument that Tyler Bertuzzi is the Red Wings' best player.
Exactly. So you're making that argument. Everyone's like all in love with Dylan Larkin. Yeah, he's a nice guy, does charitable work. He's a guy that's in the community, stands up front there. He's the guy that's talking to the media. No problem. But I'm just looking at performance, and leaves a lot to be desired, and I'm not seeing his worthiness yet of being the captain of the Red Wings. That's all I said.
Yeah,
so I wasn't being too negative.
I don't think so. If you just look, just statistics, right? Just let statistics back you up and basically be your guide here. Tyler Bertuzzi and Dylan Larkin have both played the same amount of games. Tyler Bertuzzi has one more point than Dylan Larkin. However, he has 4 more goals than Dylan Larkin. That being said, going to plus minus, which I think is a very important stat when you look at hockey players, right? That means, are you scoring more goals when you're on the ice than goals are being scored against your team? So again, if you go back to the old Detroit teams that were winning Stanley Cups, just about everybody had a positive plus minus, because they were so locked in defensively and they were able to put points up at a clip that at the time was kind of unprecedented. But Tyler Bertuzzi is a minus 14, while Dylan Larkin is a minus 16. So the edge goes to Bertuzzi there. You look at penalty minutes, Tyler Bertuzzi stays out of the sin bin, while Dylan Larkin has found himself in there more times than not. Also, you look at total ice time. Total ice time is important as well. So Tyler Bertuzzi is playing less than Dylan Larkin, yet he's able to produce more. So he's a more efficient player when he's on the ice, as well as he is a more efficient. He has a more accurate shot. His shooting percentage is much, much higher, almost 10 points higher than Dylan Larkin's, as well as he has more power play points, one more power play point than Dylan Larkin does with 10-9. So just by stats, Tyler Bertuzzi is probably your best player. If you were looking for a captain, I'm not going to say Tyler Bertuzzi should be your captain, but statistically, Tyler Bertuzzi could make the case for that. As far as Dylan Larkin goes, I understand what you're saying, and I get it. This is the thing. This is what happens with Red Wing fans. They become so insulated that they love their guy, right? Dylan Larkin is their guy. They love him.
Why? Exactly.
They love him because he's a hometown product. He was the guy who was essentially, before he ever stepped foot on the ice in a Red Wing jersey, he was anointed the next savior. He was anointed the next captain. So it's just kind of everybody is waiting for this to happen. I think he's a young player. He's got a lot of growing pains to kind of still work through. Dude's still in his early 20s. You got to remember, he didn't have to go through the AHL. He didn't have to kind of go through that struggle. He came right up. He was one of the only Red Wing prospects to ever just come right up to the big leagues and start playing immediately. So, this guy is 24, I think, ish. So, yeah, he's 24, Waterford product. So everybody loves him because, again, he's the hometown boy. All that being said, I get what you're saying. If you can get a king's ransom for him, why wouldn't you trade him? Why would you?
Not even 24. He's 23.
23. So, he's a guy who
people are willing to be patient with.
They are, but let's put it this way. Let's have a very real talk about him and his performance. If you compare him to other superstars, he's not in that caliber. He's not along the same lines as a Connor McDavid, a Sidney Crosby, in Ovechkin. He's not in that same stratosphere as other guys that are in the league. He's not a Kucherov. He's not one of these types of guys. He's like a tier below those guys. You know what I'm saying? So I just gave you 3 names of guys who are like top tier talents, and then I gave you a name of a guy who's probably tier 2. Dylan Larkin's probably tier 3. A solid player on a very, very good team, probably a second or third line center. On this team, he's your number 1 option because it's not a very good team. I don't think there's anything wrong with what you've said. I know Red Wing fans have come at you pretty hard over the last week because of your comments, but I think there's some fact in what you say. It's one of those things where, is there a happy median between you and the angry Red Wing fans? Probably. I don't think you're doing this all for show. I think you firmly believe this. You firmly believe he should be traded, and you're not going to win with him, so just go ahead and get rid of him. But at the same time, I hear what other Red Wing fans are saying. Put better talent around him. Well, when he has decent talent, he still produces good enough. It's just not at the clip that we're all expecting. Especially if this guy's going to get a massive contract in a couple years, you need to be doing a little bit more. I think we all agree.
Yeah, and it's a situation which, I don't think it'd be a terrible decision if the Wings stuck with Larkin, but he's got to do more. We have to expect more from a player of his caliber. And I don't think that in that room over there now at LCA that Steve Yzerman's sitting there going, wow, Dylan Larkin's wowing me. I think he's looking and going, whoa, this is a talented player. Why are we not getting the most out of him? Mm-hmm. And right now, they're not. And the Wings are losing. They don't play that well. They don't play consistently. And by all accounts, your star players are not producing at the level that you would need to consistently say, yeah, this is a guy that we can't touch. That's all I'm saying. Now, can you win with him? Yeah, potentially. Obviously, he's nowhere near his prime. But if the perception is that you're rebuilding from square one, you're talking about 3-4 years from now. So I do think that they are going to stick with him, but they got to demand more from him. And could you get something for him? Remember, Steve Yzerman is now sprinkling out there. He's telling people, I want to acquire more picks at this deadline. You want to make a splash. You want to put it out there that, hey, this is a new regime. This is a regime that's going to expect productivity. Then we're going to trade somebody. And I think Larkin would be the perfect candidate to send shockwaves through that locker room that, hey, your spot on this roster is not just because you're a name and we developed you. You got to produce on the ice. And, of course, maybe they'll do that with somebody else, maybe a Mantha, but Dylan Larkin's got to produce more. He's got to be a leader, a true leader, in essence, on that ice, and that means when it's time to get out there and produce shift after shift, night after night. That's the key, consistency. Yeah, you can have a game with 4 points, and then you go 2 weeks with no productivity. That doesn't work for nobody, and it's especially not working right now for the Wings. When you look at it, though, at least it's, if you're a person that's in favor of tanking, so far, so good. They have a pretty decent chance of at least getting a top 3 pick this year, and maybe if they, if the ball's, if the manner in which they, secure that first pick, if the lottery works out, potentially you can get that first pick and get that, transcendent player that everyone's talking about.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Red Wings haven't really drafted this high back to back in quite some time. And I think we're all impressed with Filip Zadina. I think he's looked good in the spots that he's come on. So if you can go out and you can get that transcendent player, and you can get that guy who's going to help take your roster to that next level. Look, I think Dylan Larkin would be a solid second or third line center. Be perfect, fine. But he can't be your number one guy. He can't be the best player on your team. And honestly, at this moment in time, just by the statistics, he's not, So I'm not saying that I'm ready to move on from him. I'm just saying I wouldn't be upset if they did.
So the verdict from Doc and Jock is Larkin's got to step it up, has the potential to do it, but for whatever reason, so far, not the best 2019-2020 season for Dylan Larkin.
I just think we all expect more.
Exactly.
We all want more from him, and we're just not getting it yet.
Let's turn our attention to the Detroit Lions and kind of a fascinating look. Now, at least it's been acknowledged, okay, because this all started when the head of the Senior Bowl, Jim Nagy, comes out. And remember, it has been documented. He was a former Patriot. Okay, so he's going to come out there and he's going to maybe favor and talk positively, glowingly about guys from the Patriots in Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia. So I'm thankful that was highlighted. But what he comes out and says is that why not? Why not the Lions? Last year the 49ers coached the Senior Bowl and they went from Mobile to Miami, which was proudly donned by Robert Saleh, the defensive coordinator, the first Middle Eastern defensive coordinator to achieve the status of getting to the Super Bowl. So very good on the 49ers. So now it's naturally drawing comparisons to the Detroit Lions because now they're coaching in Mobile. And, Nagy comes out and says it can happen. You get to see all these players and the Lions can take advantage. Okay, so then that spawns conversation from bloggers and other networks and things like that are saying, that the Lions can be that breakout team in 2020. And they're writing it and they're saying it that why not the Lions? Don't laugh, don't say things. And people that I respect and read. And I read that and I go, that's just utterly laughable. So earlier this week on Tuesday, I said, does anybody really believe it? And the notion and the response that I got was basically the diehard sycophants that definitely just are all about the Lions and are always hopeful. Even some people, I give you credit, were actually honest and said, yeah, we have hope every year, and then it just goes away within the first 3 weeks. So I'm thankful you're honest that, yes, you're doing it, that you want to believe that the Lions can draft well, can spend all the money in free agency on guys that are going to produce on the field, that it's going to turn around. But I look at that kind of talk and go, that's just spreading hype and spreading hope right now at the end of the season. But it's still too early. It's still January. It's still only 3 weeks after a disastrous season. The Lions haven't drafted yet. And all you have to do is look back to history that Bob Quinn hasn't shown you that he's going to take all that plethora of funds and spend it wisely. He hasn't shown you that he's going to draft a complete draft and, that's going to get 6 players that are going to ball out. He hasn't shown that he can go out and get a running back that's been cut 6 times that can run for 200 yards plus. Spare me that kind of talk. And that's why I sit here and I go, okay, when you read that, it's just for those that are just like, yeah, rah, rah. There is no chance. The more I talk about it, there is no chance the Lions are the next 49ers next year. Your first, and when I asked the question, what's your realistic expectation? My expectation that would at least calm me down is get to the playoffs. Expecting a win, expecting multiple playoff wins, expecting that they're going to win 10-plus games, win on the road and win. Come on, get out of here. Stafford's not Jimmy G. You don't have a running back that you can say can control games anywhere near the caliber of a Derrick Henry or what you saw all across the teams that were in the playoffs. Get out of here with that. You don't even have the caliber of Aaron Jones on the Packers.
Au contraire, my friend. Au contraire. So let me kind of break this down for you. All right, I did a little bit of a deep dive as to how, because I had a feeling that I knew where you're going to go with this. I have a deep dive with, I think it was about 4 or 5, maybe 6 points on how the Lions match up with the 49ers. So right off the bat, the one thing that everybody points to is you have an injured franchise quarterback resulting in a high draft pick, right? It's really what you do with that draft pick that's going to kind of separate these two teams and kind of take them in whichever direction they're going to go. For the 49ers, they drafted Nick Bosa, who's an absolute savage. He is so much fun to watch on the field. The guy is freaking fantastic, and he helped change that defense. He took that defense to a new level. You look at their wide receiving core, right? So they have a good mix of veteran and young wide receivers. 49ers have Emmanuel Sanders, who they ended up trading for late in the year, as well as Deebo Samuel, who's been an absolute stud. They drafted him last year. Your Lions have Marvin Jones, who's a pretty good wide receiver, and Kenny Golladay, who's going to his first Pro Bowl. You bring in a DN that's going to give you sub-double-digit sack numbers. In this case, the 49ers traded for D Ford. The Detroit Lions went out and acquired free agent Trey Flowers. They both drafted a linebacker the year prior, and he's a starter for the Lions, Jelani Tavai, for the 49ers, Dre Greenlawn. If you kind of look a little bit closer, they both have tight ends that they feel are elite or on the precipice of being elite. For the 49ers, I think we all agree that you've got George Kittle, who is absolutely elite and is a stud. He really helped revolutionize that offense by doing multiple things. The guy can absolutely block. The guy can catch. The guy can run routes. He's quick like a wide receiver, but he is built like a linebacker. He's an absolute stud. The Lions feel the same way about TJ Hawkinson. Now, TJ Hawkinson's year was cut short because of an injury. So right here, these are things that you can kind of pull at to say they're similar. All that being said, I don't believe that they're the same at all. I just don't. I'm in the same boat as you. There is so much that goes on. If you just look at what the 49ers have done, their defensive line is so deep and so stacked with guys who just get to the quarterback. So D Ford is the guy that they traded for. He is a backup. He's like their second or third DN on this team. He's not their number one guy. Trey Flowers is your number one guy on this roster. You know what I'm saying? So they're just way deeper. I think Deebo Samuel is a more explosive running back than Kenny Golladay. You look at this past weekend's game. Jimmy G didn't have to do a whole ton. He threw the ball, 6 or 8 times?
Yeah,
I mean,
less than 10 times.
They just ran the ball. You don't have a running back. You don't have a offensive line that can control and manhandle a game like the 49ers. You're not there yet. And Bob Quinn, since he's come in, has worked on retooling that offensive line, and it just hasn't worked. It just hasn't worked out. You know, you go and you bring in high-priced free agents. You spend draft picks, high draft picks on that offensive line. I mean, we've talked about it before. Probably your best offensive lineman you won't even bring back this year in Graham Glasgow. You're probably going to let him go. He's one of your best and one of your more versatile guys. And you're not going to bring him back because you don't want to pay him, which, hey, dummy, he's one of your best guys. Better than that left tackle that you spent a first-round draft pick on. Do you know what I'm saying? So, no, I don't believe that they are the same. That's just, honestly, that is just mostly the offense. I mean, looking at that defense is a nightmare. And they rush multiple fronts. They show you different things. And with the Lions, just schematically, Lions are showing you 3 or showing you 4, and they're bringing 3 or 4. They're not showing you anything different ever. We talked about Dak Prescott's comments a couple times throughout the course of the season, and he was like, we knew exactly what they were going to do. It allowed me to make my progressions 2 and 3 times. You don't have time like that with the 49ers when you're playing them. I don't believe they're the same teams. I don't believe that they're on the same track. I would hope so, and as every Lion fan, you hope this. I just don't see it. The 49ers have done something that I think is pretty awesome to watch. You go out, you hire your head coach. Your head coach is influential in hiring your general manager. Your general manager played the game, was a defensive back, so he played in the secondary, understands what it means to have a a vicious defensive line in front of him and what that means for the secondary. I mean, if you look at that secondary, probably the biggest name in that secondary is Richard Sherman, and he's an aging veteran. Yet he's put in such a good spot because that D line is so damn talented, and they put so much pressure on the quarterbacks that it makes him look good. You know, going to San Francisco probably bought him another 2 or 3 years on his career because he doesn't have to do as much and he doesn't get exploited. You know, it's really interesting to see how this team was put together and how they've been built, and then you compare that to what the Lions have kind of done, where the 49ers were more methodical. They knew exactly what they needed. They knew what they wanted, and they went out and they targeted specific pieces. The Lions, again, seem like they just kind of take this buckshot approach, right? We're just going to throw different things everywhere, and hopefully we get something. And it just hasn't worked out. You look at just their running game. You know, Tevin Coleman was supposed to be their number one guy. He was supposed to split carries with Matt Breida. Tevin Coleman gets basically bumped down the depth chart because Raheem Mostert is just an absolute savage. And this is a guy who didn't do a whole ton in college. He was cut by 6 other teams, and he was almost cut by the 49ers. They kept him on as a special teams guy because he had fumbling issues. Next thing you know, they're giving him the rock down the stretch of the season when every game is important, and this guy is putting up 100-plus yard days and scoring touchdowns at an unprecedented clip. And then you fast forward to the NFC Championship game, and the guy gives you over 220 yards and gives you 4 touchdowns, and he controlled that game. Him and that offensive line controlled. They had nothing to do with Jimmy G, had nothing to do with Kittle, had nothing to do with really anybody else. It was that offensive line, and it was the running back, and that was it. They could have plugged you in. They could have plugged you in as the quarterback that day. All you have to do is go make 6 passes-ish. Just kind of throw them in the vicinity of somebody. We're just going to hand the ball off. And they just ran it right down Green Bay's throat. Green Bay didn't have an answer for it.
Now, obviously, people are gravitating toward the Niners because of the fact that, hey, you know, the similarities are that they coached in the Senior Bowl, that they, you know, had a nasty injury to a quarterback, and they lost a bunch of games, and they drafted well, okay? But one of the first things that people have said is there's no Nick Bosa-type defensive line rusher there. There's period. There's not a guy that's going to automatically come in.
Is that Chase Young, though?
But you're not going to get him. You're not going to get him, so you're not going to trade up to get him either. So I don't think that right now that people are viewing Chase Young in the Nick Bosa category. They compare him. They compare him in that class. But look what Nick Bosa did. You know, he was out there balling, and he was making impactful plays, part of a defensive line that was stout. So I look at that scenario and I say, you know what? Realistically, I can see the comparison why people are making it. It's not realistic. I think that, you know, one thing people can look at is that, yes, the Lions, because they have a defensive coach, are going to be targeting and looking for a certain type of defensive player. But why don't people say, you know what, based on what the Lions have with Matthew Stafford, with Kenny Galladay, with the potential to draft an explosive wide receiver maybe in rounds 2 through 4, why don't people turn their attention and say, you know what, maybe the more sustainable approach in the era in which the league is now going is why don't the Lions kind of build like Kansas City? Maybe go out there and be an explosive offense that can score a bunch of points that, hey, they get down 21, no worries. Hey, we're going to drop 45. You know, look at the Kansas City Chiefs for a minute. And yes, people are definitely paying attention to the Niners in that defense, and obviously, naturally, with Patricia being there. But you don't think maybe the Lions are maybe closer offensively to being elite than they are defensively? It appears that the Lions are kind of starting from scratch on defense. It doesn't appear that the Lions are right there where they're one season away from having a defense led by a guy like Saleh, and they're going to pressure everybody, and they're going to radically change everything. I mean, the guys they picked came to the job and didn't even care to ask if or want to know if he's going to call plays or not. That was revealed at the Senior Bowl. So what's that tell you? They're going to work together, put together a scheme, but we still don't know, as of this recording, who's calling the plays, who's going to be in charge. So they don't know that. So I don't see realistically that you're going to go, wow, we have a terrible defense, and then in 1 year, you're going to have the best defense or a top defense. I think that realistically, you could maybe say, you know, we had a couple pieces. Get that running back, get that wide receiver, spend in free agency on some talented individuals. Maybe look at Derrick Henry and steal a little bit from the Titans. You got that guy. Boom, you pick a wide receiver late in the draft that you think can make a couple plays. hey, maybe you trade down, you get that second pick, you take a Jerry Jeudy, or you take, one of those talented receivers that's out there, and now you develop an offense that maybe is just so unstoppable that you don't have to worry about the defense. Hey, the defense gives up 28, 35. You're just going to score 42, 48, and you're going to have a world-class offense and just say, we're going to just try to do whatever we can. This Super Bowl is probably going to, in terms of who wins and how it shakes out, could shape a lot of people's perception because let's say, for example, KC gets rolling and they just touchdown, and they blow out the 49ers. And it's one of those situations where it's not like it was with Denver where they came out and they dominated with a solid defense. Remember, I like defense, so I'm rooting for Robert Saleh. But what happens if it's a blowout on the other side?
Right.
Andy Reid gets it with Mahomes, young quarterback. You now change the entire narrative. So don't be so close-minded to say maybe if the Lions – and the light bulb goes off, maybe they don't build like the Chiefs and go offense.
Mm-hmm. I would love for them to build like the 49ers. I mean, we're in the same camp. We both love defense. We both think defense.
It's great to see, right? You see how awesome that was to see the Niners, just pressure. And that's what I always tweet is like, Patricia's scheme is always like, and that's what pisses me off is that he's like, we got to be in close games. It's just a league that just is within one touchdown most of the time. Niners didn't do that.
Yep.
They just were like, we're going to ball till we fall, man, and we're going to pressure. Aaron Rodgers. He's going to look terrible. He's going to not make as many plays. Yeah, we're going to let up yards after we're up by 3-4 touchdowns. But by half, they were balling, and they weren't moving the ball past the 50-yard line.
The game was over at halftime.
Exactly.
So
you don't have to. You don't have to play a 7-point game.
No,
it's not a rule. It's not like a mandate.
Right.
You can ball. You can dominate.
You can completely obliterate your opponent. It's totally okay. I would love for them to build like the 49ers, but I think you're right. I think what you've mentioned is this team is closer, especially with Bevel. Again, I was not a Bevel guy. I did not like that hire. I didn't think it was going to work out. And he came in here, and Matt Stafford looked really good before he got hurt. Matt Stafford looked really, really good, like super efficient, super effective. I liked kind of what you've seen with the run game. I thought it all worked. And then Stafford gets hurt, and then you're in games with backup and third-string quarterbacks, and you're like, okay, cool. So maybe we've got something here with our offensive coordinator. Maybe there's a little bit here that we can kind of trick around and do. I think you're right. I think this team is closer with the pieces that they have and the talent that they have. They're closer to being more like the Chiefs than they are to the 49ers. As far as that defense goes, you're probably closer to being right than you are wrong with them building from scratch. I mean, I don't know if Darius Slay makes it past day one of the draft. Do you know what I'm saying? I could totally see him being shipped off for a possible first-round pick, a late first-round pick. I mean, could you see the New England Patriots trading away their first overall pick for a guy like Darius Slay? I mean, I think he would slot in perfectly over there. He would help that defense out immensely. Now, I don't think that defense necessarily needs the help because they were pretty decent against just about everybody in the league this year. But that would be a move that I think Bob Quinn would make because Matt Patricia would want that. And I think that'd be a move that Bill Belichick would make. So I could totally see this working out. So I could see you almost basically starting from ground zero with that defense. I mean, I don't know if A'Shaun Robinson comes back next year. You got Trey Flowers. And then, Romeo Okwara probably. And that's kind of your DNs, your D tackle. You're not sure what's going on with Snacks. Is Snacks coming back? He doesn't know. Your linebacking core is kind of a mess. You got Jelani Tavai and you got Jelani Tavai because I don't think any of us are sold on Davis. And you have other linebackers that are just kind of stopgap guys that are just there to help fill in. So you essentially have a linebacker that you could pencil in on this roster. And then as far as your secondary goes, it's a complete mess. You got Tracy Walker and you got Tracy Walker because I don't believe that Darius Slay is coming back next year.
See, I don't think he probably will be on the roster beyond 2020. I think he'll be on the roster in 2020 because
back next year?
When it's a win now mandate, there's no way the team is better when you let go of Darius Slay.
I agree with you, but
unless you get that second round pick,
sometimes addition by subtraction,
potentially. But you would have to then target Okudah. If that would be the case, then the third pick is going to be slotted for Okudah, and then you maybe address further in free agency. But I think you combine Okudah with Slay, and now we're talking business,
right?
So for me, I would say that
again,
I would say they would probably take a second rounder, right, to trade him. high
for Darius Slay.
Yeah,
I mean, at least.
Yeah, so I don't see that happening. I don't see nobody offering that for a guy at his position. I
kind
think
of depends on where you're at, though, because he is still a top 5 cornerback in this league. And here's the thing: I do firmly believe in addition by subtraction. I think that is a very real thing. I think you could possibly move him out. I love Darius Slay. I think he's entertaining. I think he's comical. I don't know if he works in that locker room anymore. I don't think Matt Patricia appreciates him. I don't think Matt Patricia appreciates his voice. And you have to remember, he is one of the longer tenured players on this roster. So when he speaks, a lot of guys listen. And when he's saying, Coach, this isn't working. We need to change this. Something has to be better. You're not doing a good enough job. What the hell are we doing trying to run this bullshit-ass scheme? A lot of guys are listening to that. And a lot of guys now are like, yeah, Coach, why are we running this BS scheme? What's going on? Do you know what I'm saying? So sometimes you remove that mouthpiece, all of a sudden everybody kind of falls in order, and Matt Patricia gets what he wants. He wants that bend but don't break defense, and maybe it gets better, you know?
Okay, so it's a fascinating look at what the Detroit Lions could look like, but I would say that I think the betting favorites is going to be that Darius Slay's on this roster. I just don't see that happening, and I don't see what a lot of these individuals that look at what the Detroit Lions are capable of. You have to start with 500. I mean, you realize that the futility that the organization has shown for so long, to have that level of hope, you have to kind of expect that, you know, they're going to be futile. And if they exceed that, then be quite surprised. And I messaged someone that, you know what, I would not be surprised if by Thanksgiving next year, Patricia and Quinn are gone. If it starts off bad, if the coaching doesn't turn around. By Thanksgiving, by the end of November, that's still around 10, 12 games.
Yeah.
Let's say, for example, they're 4-8. You know, at that point, you don't think the heat's going to be so hot. The amount of pressure that the Lions are going to be under to start 2020 is going to be outstanding, unbelievable. And I don't see how the public perception is going to be that they're going to garner a lot of support. If you don't come off with a bunch of wins, Stafford looks good. Remember that you're putting in people's hearts and minds San Francisco. They won a bunch of games. Mm-hmm. So it's not out of the question that these guys don't finish the year. Now, will they? Probably. Maybe if they go 8-8, they'll get another year. But it's not out of the question that they don't finish. They don't finish out their third season, because it's going to be a high-pressure situation. Fans are angry. Fans aren't buying this. I think by and large, fans are not buying the hype already. They want to see what's going to happen in the draft. They want to see if the Lions offense does some things, and they want to see how Matthew Stafford looks. And Bob Quinn, I want to ask you this. He went out and did an interview, of course, with SiriusXM, the national media, and he answered some questions. I thought it was a very candid 12-minute interview. I wrote about it. You can go to Lions Maven and check it out at si.com, and you can see kind of the recap of what he said. But I think the thing that most people gravitated towards was a great question by Alex Marvez. And he said, look, there's rumors that you guys are taking a quarterback high based on what Matthew Stafford's done. And Bob Quinn answered candidly, now maybe to the detriment of the organization. We'll see. Based on this clip, what you think, Cuz, because I thought it was candid. I thought it was probably one of the fair answers he's supposed to give, but maybe in one of those situations where we know that Quinn has been evasive and lied, maybe his answer to this should have been a lie to maybe spark up, because now you have the chance. You have the floor. SiriusXM going out to the nation. You know people are listening. I heard it live, and then I blogged about it and wrote about it. So maybe in this one instance, maybe he could have lied and maybe put out maybe a rumor, or maybe kind of not denied one. But here it was his response. Let's get your take on it.
Yeah, I'm totally comfortable and happy that Matthew Stafford's our quarterback. He's going to be in full health once the offseason program starts its course. He's pretty much at full health right now. I talked to him about 10 days ago. He was in the office, so he's feeling great. He's in a good mindset. He's excited. Obviously, he's a competitor, so for him to miss half a season, it was hard on him. But he did a great job with our backup quarterbacks. We went through a couple guys. We had another injury at quarterback a couple weeks after Matthew went down. So just behind the scenes, you know, seeing him in a different light. You know, since I've been there, he's been at every practice and every game. So he's been at every practice and every game, but he wasn't participating in the second half of the season. But to see him in coach mode, it was pretty cool to see, because he really cares about not only our team, but his teammates and his leadership, and him helping those other young quarterbacks really learn our system on the fly, you know, when he went down. So I feel great about Matthew. He's going to come back strong, and, you know, we're ready to go for next year.
Okay. Maybe he could have gave that answer, but also added, look, in the NFL draft, all options are on the table. We definitely are excited that Tua came out, and we're going to take a long, hard look at what he brings to the table. think if you just added 2 sentences, you now maybe get the ball rolling that you could do it. I think that basically he kind of showed one of his cards in a 2-poker hand, and I just don't think that you can sell that you're going to draft Tua. And maybe you want to, and you're going to shock everybody by doing it, but you're trying to raise the value of that pick. You want to make everybody believe you're taking it so that, Miami or Carolina or a team lower that really loves Tua is going to come up and get it. Did that answer really make you really think that they're going to select Tua or even consider it? That clip right there makes everybody go, okay, done. They're done. They like Stafford. He's there. There's no way they're going to do it. And I think that is the wrong way to approach it. I think he gave the wrong answer.
Yeah, I think so too. Again, you're trying to drive as much value up for your 3rd overall pick as you can. You got a guy like Joe Burrow coming off the board probably at number 1, and then Chase Young probably at number 2, unless the Redskins do something crazy. I don't know why you wouldn't try to figure it out and try to market that differently. Unless they do draft a quarterback late. We'll say maybe 3rd round. I mean, it's not really late, but you take a quarterback in the 3rd round, maybe a guy like Jalen Hurts. How do you feel about that? So, look, I get what you're saying. I like pumping everything up for Tua. I like making it seem like you're going to take him, and I prefer you trade back and get as many draft picks as possible because you need to fill multiple slots on this roster. If you could somehow work something out with Miami, you get their 5th, and you get one of their later 1st-round picks, that'd be great. I don't care if you have to throw something else in, you do it. You now give yourself more bullets to launch in the 1st round, which is what you want. I don't know. Sometimes, to me, it really feels like all of the coaches and all of the general managers in this town sound the exact same. Like when I was listening to that, I was like, God, the guy sounds just like Jeff Blashill. You know what I'm saying? And like Jeff Blashill sounds just like Mike Babcock. And you're just like, what the hell? They all sound the same. It's all just blah, 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 rhetoric. But you could have spun it different, and you could have really started the tour parade and really got some noise going, got everybody buzzing like, oh, maybe Detroit's going to take Tua. And all of a sudden, Miami has no idea what the hell you're doing, but it gets things hot, and Miami's like, we've got to trade. Or somebody else has to move up and trade with them, and they're going to give you a little bit more. It's all about maximizing that value, and I don't think you did that. I think as a general manager, you screwed up. You messed up again because you don't necessarily need we both agree you don't necessarily need a quarterback. I don't think either one of us are going to be upset if you take a quarterback there because we kind of see the writing on the wall here. But you need other positions filled. So why not go get more impactful guys from that 1st round by just falling back? That bothers me. Jalen Hurts is a guy though that could be out there. I mean, comes from again Oklahoma via Alabama. I think this is a guy who has shown a lot of mental fortitude, has really shown that he is a team-first guy. I mean, look at what happened in Alabama when he got beat out by Tua in the middle of the season at the biggest time, in the biggest games. And then Tua goes down with an injury. Jalen Hurts steps in and helps lead Alabama to a national title, or helps them get to play in the national title. And then Tua kind of takes over from there. Then transfers to Oklahoma. Oklahoma, the guy plays really, really well. I don't know if Jalen Hurts is necessarily a guy that I want, but he would be a project. And he's a guy who falls in line with Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, and then Jalen Hurts. Do you know what I'm saying? Coming out of that Oklahoma football program and doing really special things while he was there. So he's a guy who you could possibly get later in the draft, and that could be your future backup quarterback. He'd be a guy who could learn underneath Stafford. Stafford goes into coach mode and kind of tutors him a little bit. I think that could really, really work. I don't know.
I just don't think that in terms of playing the game, yeah, maybe things will sprinkle, but I don't think it's believable enough. From what they've said and what they've done, I don't think that anybody that is going to trade up potentially will have to trade up with the Detroit Lions. I think that they've kind of maybe given up some of that potential. Now, if Tua lights it up, I guess in terms of the hype, Bob Quinn is not going to play the game the right way. But if Tua excels and has these unbelievable pre-draft workouts, then maybe, just maybe, you put it out there even more. It's still early, but that first chance to nationally kind of spark the debate and spark the intrigue that you could take a quarterback was missed, in my opinion, from Bob Quinn.
I agree.
And just to kind of recap the Senior Bowl, kind of early on, it just kind of seems like people are a little bit down on the practices a little bit, saying that maybe too much time was spent on special teams and things like that. But at the end of the day, the part that I look at is that the Lions didn't bring an entire coaching staff. They haven't filled it out yet. Now, it's realistic that how can you fill out your staff just yet, just 3 weeks after the season? And it is something that's going to take time, but the part that is intriguing to a lot of people is that the Lions told Jim Nagy in the Senior Bowl, yeah, we're going to bring an entire staff. So you're seeing that they still have old coaches there and you have a plethora of coaches, but you don't have your entire staff just there on hand. So it seems a little bit chaotic in terms of how the Lions are doing it from their point of view. So could you imagine, you're a prospect and you're like, man, I'm getting coached by Matt Patricia. He has that respect, but at the same time, you have that skeptical eye going, is this guy really any good? He's obviously here because his team's not that good, and you're trying to buy in. And here's the thing that's funny, too, is that you got to try to sell yourself to Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn, knowing that they could be out in 1 year. So do you really sell yourself to them, or do you go, man, I want to do good, but I really want to shine for, when I get to my real interviews for teams that I want to go for. But it just seems like all those guys that are there doing their thing, it's just, I don't know. For me personally, I'm not into it as much as everyone else is. People are into it. They want to read about it. They want to know the linebackers, cornerbacks, who's there, how's Shea Patterson doing, how are the Wolverines, how are the Spartans doing. But it doesn't seem to me like the Senior Bowl has the cachet as other type stuff. I'm more interested in the bowl games and the combine and other type stuff. But people are really down for the Senior Bowl, and especially with the Lions being there.
Yeah, I'm not really as geared up for the Senior Bowl myself.
Never have been.
I get super turned up for the Underwear Olympics.
Everybody
love the
does.
Combine.
Yeah.
Senior Bowl is just a little bit different. You know why I think it is? Because you don't have you have a lot of really, really good players there.
Good players.
But you don't have some of the most explosive players.
Exactly. So it feels like it's just for hardcore fans that want to pay attention to who are the picks going to be 4 through 7. Mm-hmm. And that's a small group of people. I can't say that. It's not for the masses. I can't see the majority of people caring what's going to happen from rounds 4 through 7. But there are interests enough. So it's a fascinating look at what's going on down there. But I think for Detroit fans, who's going to be the coaches? Who's going to I think the other nugget from that interview that Bob Quinn did was he hasn't started his evaluations yet, which produced a lot of funny memes, which is
nuts.
Yeah, it's funny, too, because people said that, I'll tell you what the evaluations are. You guys sucked, was the response I got. But I felt, too, it was pretty fair, too, because he said, we want to kind of let the emotion of the season subside a little bit, and we'll take a look at the stuff that went down next week.
Bro, you've been letting the emotions subside for what, 3 weeks now?
Yeah.
Like, that's a lot of emotions.
But they also had to prep for the Senior Bowl, too.
I get it, but your quarterback went down like way early in the season, and it was obvious to everybody that you guys were waving the white flag. So, what? You need 15 weeks to let all that emotion subside? What are you doing?
Exactly. You should have probably been aware of what's going on along the way, that your defense wasn't good enough and that your depth is awful at several positions.
The moment that you guys tied Arizona, you should have been like, it'll be one of them seasons, huh? That's what we said. We're like, it'll be one of them.
All right, first time out, we'll come back, and we got to talk about the Pistons and the manner in which they could potentially rebuild. It has been noted by Tom Gores that, he's going to entertain possibly trading away some star pieces. But it might not be the one, it might not be guys that you think. Another emerging player has emerged, and we'll talk about that as well, second half of the podcast. The reason why the studio lights are on and we're able to keep the microphones hot here in our Sterling Heights studio is because we work with great sponsors. And the two sponsors of this fine broadcast this week are the Motor City Pawnbrokers and the Flick Chat application. The Motor City Pawnbrokers are the one-stop pawn shop when you're looking for quality, brand name new, and pre-owned merchandise with locations in Detroit, Roseville, Ferndale, and Warren. Their mission is to deliver exceptional value. Today, head on over to MotorCityPawnbrokers.com. That's MotorCityPawnbrokers.com to check out all the deals, all the happenings that you can find at the pawn shops. And if you're near one of the 4 locations, go on in and tell them the Detroit Sports Podcast sent you, and they'll deliver you great value, help you with your needs. Mark and the crew there, they're dedicated to providing great customer service. That's MotorCityPawnbrokers.com. Head on over there today. If you've agreed or disagreed with anything that you've heard today on this episode of the podcast, head on over to the Flick Chat application. And what is Flick, you ask? Simple. It's a great Detroit Sports Forum, where you can create your own topics and debate sports. You can talk about the NFL draft, the Senior Bowl. If you're a fan of professional wrestling, we definitely watch the live events, and we talk about it, and we chat via this group chat application. All you got to do is head on over to your favorite app store, whether it be Google Play or the Apple Store, and download Flick Chat, and then enter in, when you hit the plus sign, these 3 letters, all lowercase, DSP, and then you're in Detroit Sports' newest headquarters. You can create your own forum, your own topic. You're in control, and all the hosts here are into it. If you're a fan of podcasts, you can even download and find your favorite podcast via Flick. It's Detroit Sports' newest headquarters. Don't miss out. Create your own topics. Get in there. Get in the mix. If you have a question, you can find any one of the hosts here, and we can have great sports debates. And that's what it's all about. You know, when we talk about sports and when we host podcasts, the reason why we do it is because we get great interaction. And one of the places that we all go to debate sports is Flick Chat. All right, cuz, got to end the podcast talking a little bit of Pistons. I know we don't talk a heck of a lot about Detroit basketball, but they are in the news now. People are definitely aware that Andre Drummond is on the trade block. And national stories are coming out regarding some teams that have been interested, potentially maybe, you know, the Atlanta Falcons. Now that got put out there, that has been debunked, and that is now off the table. But other teams potentially could be calling. But the problem now is that the value of what people are offering is not anywhere near what Detroit wants. So it lends to people getting upset and frustrated that, oh man, and myself included, the Detroit Pistons potentially waited too long to let go of Andre Drummond, and the return could potentially not make Detroit pull the trigger. And then what's going to happen? The Pistons might eventually just have to let Andre go in free agency this year, because he's not going to take a hometown discount this time. He could get a fair offer. Is he going to come back? Is he happy here? No. So you could be facing a situation where Andre Drummond leaves and you get nothing. And that is horrible. That is so frustrating, especially to me, because, you know, from the time that Tom Gores took over the team till now, it hasn't gone anywhere near the way it should have. And in terms of rebuilding, they decided too late. Hands down, by acquiring Blake Griffin, fine, you know, that's questionable. But last year, he did what he was supposed to do. He was there. If you have any sort of long-term vision for this franchise, you go, damn, Andre, Blake, they're getting the team, you know, doing some stuff. Let's let them go. Let's get the first-round picks. Let's start this rebuild. Let's not push toward a playoff where you get destroyed in 4 games by the Bucks. That's not what you're supposed to do. And by making that decision, upper management has really potentially hurt the Detroit Pistons and set them back maybe even a decade. But maybe there's a silver lining in that this new regime has acquired some talent that maybe could potentially turn it around, and you can flip now. Can't make the same mistake. Derrick Rose is balling, and you're starting to hear potential interest from the Lakers. Maybe even you could maybe squeeze a player like a Kyle Kuzma and a first-round pick. Maybe, because remember now, Derrick Rose is balling 20 points consistently. So the Pistons can't make the same mistakes twice. You got to unload. And unfortunately, you know, Blake Griffin's hurt this year, but it's helped the cause because it's highlighted the fact that the Pistons do need to rebuild. But the handling of Andre Drummond, in my eyes, has been bungled, and it could potentially blow up in their face because there's been games now where he's been benched, hasn't shown the effort, and other players are coming in and are showing what we want to see, hustle, and they're out there game in and game out, and they're impressing Dwayne Casey. Andre Drummond, 1 foot out the door, potential huge problem, cuz.
I think they totally missed with this.
Totally. A total whiff, right?
What you have to realize is nobody who is drafting as high as Atlanta is probably going to be drafting is going to give you that draft pick, is going to include that first-round draft pick. And that's what it was. It was a first-round draft pick that you could have had. According to Chris Haynes, and this is what the reported trade rumor was, it was going to be Andre Drummond for some expiring contracts that would have included center Damon Jones, Chandler Parsons, who sounds like his career is over, and Allen Crabbe with a first-round pick. Currently, Atlanta is the second worst team in the NBA. So do you know how many lottery balls you get? Now, you pair that with whatever Detroit's going to get when they end up finishing their season, where I think we're all assuming that they're going to be a bottom 10 team in the league. So you've got multiple chances to get numerous upper-end first-round draft commodities, and you say no to a guy who's going to walk and who's going to leave for why. I don't know what else you wanted. I don't know what else you could expect here. Is it because the pick might have been protected? Who the hell cares if the pick's going to be protected? You get a first or a second overall pick protection on it. Big deal. Next year you get that first round pick. It doesn't matter. There are ways to work around this and to negotiate. You just negotiate. Give them what they want. They want Andre. You don't want Andre. You want to lose games right now. This makes all the sense in the world to trade a guy who doesn't want to be here, is costing you a fortune. Trade him for something. Get it now. Move on. And you're right. Derrick Rose has been playing out of his mind. Derrick Rose is looking like the best signing of this past year's NBA free agency. He's playing great. You should demand a first-round pick for him. You should demand a first-round pick for Andre Drummond as well. That's what you should be asking for. And if I'm the Pistons, that's what I want. The thing is, you have to be smart about it, and you've got to do what's best for your team. So that's great that the Lakers want him, and they're probably going to be willing to give you a first-round pick. The only problem is it's going to be one of those later-end first-round picks. You always kind of want to be drafting, if it's a first-round pick that you're getting via trade, you would love to get something in the middle. You want a team who's kind of in contention, maybe near a playoff bubble, and if they can get Derrick Rose, it kind of puts them over the top and catapults them a little bit. That's kind of what you want. But whatever, man. LA wants him. You get a player in return too. Sure, whatever. We're all about acquiring assets here. If you're the Detroit Red Wings and you're the Detroit Pistons, we're all about acquiring assets. Whatever we've got to do to get as many shots in the draft. And that's how you build an NBA team, right? We've had this discussion before. Best way to build an NBA team is through the draft, and then you go out and you grab a guy or two through free agency who's kind of that final piece. But you need to get this young core and get them coming together. You look at what Golden State was able to do. Golden State was essentially put together through a draft, just multiple drafts. Everything was layered in. You hit with Draymond Green in the second. You had two guys who can light it up and shoot from anywhere. You look at this year, they've got basically major injuries all over that team right now. And what's going to end up happening is they're going to get a high first-round pick, and they're going to start this process all over again. This is basically San Antonio when they got Tim Duncan. You know, David Robinson goes down. Okay, cool, no problem. We'll just kind of sit back and let this all unfold. And next thing you know, the big fundamental comes out, and you're drafting him. And so now you basically have a changing of hands here from San Antonio being really, really good with David Robinson to the two of them playing together to being Tim Duncan's team. And you just going on tears for years because San Antonio's been so damn good because they just put together drafts and things just kind of worked out for them. That's what's going to happen in Golden State. You know, it's going to be fantastic.
Do you see a scenario in which this turns around and the Pistons, I guess I'm gauging your confidence that the Pistons in the next coming seasons are going to actually turn it around because there's new management there. There is, guys that obviously went out and signed Derrick Rose. I just think for me, my confidence is a little bit lower that they're actually going to target the right players. Now, the young players do have, some spunk, and I'm really happy to see that. I think the drafting of Sekou has really kind of, put a bunch of fire in people, and people really like to see that. And but the problem I see is that have they really committed to tanking? Have they committed to really going out there and figuring out ways to not win games? It's just you have to build, unfortunately, through the draft and making quality free agent selections. And now this year, some contracts are going to come off the books. But now the question lends itself to, do you trust those that are picking to actually go out there and do the job? And that's the $1 million question is, I just don't see it just yet because you have a bunch of talent, but are they high-end talent? Sekou, that's about it. Luke Kennard is not going to be a guy that's going to be a top 50 player in the NBA, but it could be serviceable. You got to see what he's going to emerge, but I just don't see that collectively. Are you really going to build a team around Christian Wood, Zvi Mykhailiuk, and Sekou Doumbouya? It seems okay maybe in the East, but can you really win playoff rounds with those guys? Christian Wood's getting some hype, Zvi's shooting the three, but it's okay. It seems like for me right now, you've built kind of maybe spots 6 through 12. Who's going to be the top guys is kind of what I want to know. And can you go out there and bring them in here through the draft? But that's the biggest question mark.
Yeah, here's the thing, though. But
that's not a core, is it?
Well, you got to remember, too, Zvi's a young player. Sekou's a rookie. So you've got some talent here. Let me put it to you like this. I am probably more confident in this Pistons front office than I have been in years. because it seems like they've got the ear of Tom Gores, right? They got him to be willing to part with Andre Drummond. I think if this front office was here, you never would have had Blake come in. You never would have traded for him. I believe that, because I believe that Tom Gores is finally listening to these guys. I don't think he listened to Stan Van Gundy. I think he felt he knew more about basketball than Stan Van did, which you're an idiot, but whatever. Look, Andre and Tom Gores are boys, right? Like we've talked about this before. They are. There was this. I don't know. Like it felt like Tom Gores was just drawn to Andre Drummond and just loved him and was willing to give him whatever he wanted. And I think that Tom Gores finally realizes, like, hey, you're not going to be able to win with this guy. Basketball's different. He is a prehistoric player. So now you got to trade. Now, I think they shot themselves in the foot with that Atlanta deal. I totally think they shot themselves in the foot with that Atlanta deal. But that's neither here nor there. I think you can still go out and you can get a first round pick for him. You're gonna end up trading Derrick Rose, which I think is a fantastic move. You get another first round pick for him. And you take those 2 picks and you try to find guys and build around what you already have. Look, Sekou is showing out, right? I think he's a year ahead of his development, kind of where we thought he was going to be. So you're getting really good production from him very early. That's fantastic. I like Svi. I think Svi's a good player. I don't think he's fantastic, but I think he's a really good player. I think he's got some talent. You can build around him. If you keep Luke Kennard, which I don't believe he's going anywhere, he's starting to blossom and show a little bit. And then, of course, you got Blake. So if you get 3 shots in the first round this year, you should be able to come away with somebody who's going to make an impact. And I think that would be your core. It would be whoever you draft this year. It would be Svi, it would be Sekou, it would be Blake, and it would be Luke. And that's kind of your top 5. And then you're just kind of filling it in with other guys who are going to be role players or bit players, and hopefully you can find a 6th man who can come off the bench and light it up. You know, if that's Langston Galloway, then great. If it's not, find somebody else. If it's Christian Wood, fantastic. If it's not, find somebody else. You know, it's kind of one of those types of things. I think you're in a weird spot if you're the Pistons, right? And weird not necessarily meaning bad. You are in a spot where you've got some commodities. You've got a guy like Andre Drummond, who some people seem to like, some people seem to be sour on. You got a guy like Derrick Rose, who everybody seems to want. You got to find what works best for you, and you got to trade these guys. You have to. You can't just pass on stuff. You've got to move these guys. You can't have them remain on your roster, because what you need to happen is you need this team to be so damn bad. Blake's already basically been IR'd for the year. He's done. So it's just, you got to let the young guys play, let the young guys go out there and learn, and let them do things. There's zero pressure now. Once you move these 2 pieces out and Blake's on IR, zero pressure, because nobody's expecting anything. All we're expecting is that you tumble to the bottom, end up somewhere near the bottom, hopefully top 5, so you get the best shot at getting a number 1 draft pick, right? That's what you want. So when the lotto happens, you're drafting hopefully at number 1. That's what we want. But you got to move these guys, bottom out, basically start over. You've got some young pieces. You've got guys you can build around. You just have to be able to hit in this draft. You can't afford to miss.
Man, good stuff. Like talking basketball, and we just now have to wait and see how this is going to be approached. Some negative press has been kind of revealed now with Andre Drummond and his effort and things like that. Maybe that's trying to drive the market down, or maybe the Pistons are just trying to, leak some things. But I do think that, right now the best position for the Pistons is to find a way to unload these guys. However you can do it, Derrick Rose, Andre Drummond, if you can bring back some more draft picks, then I think it'll be better all the way around. And it's good, at least to see some more buzz around the Pistons in terms of roster building. So we're at square one. They've now decided to rebuild, but now we have to go forward and see how this is going to be executed. So we'll see. Doc and Jock will be here. If you have a comment on the Pistons, feel free. Leave us a message. Follow us on Twitter at Detroit Podcast. Follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. You can leave a voicemail anytime as well, and we'll play the best ones here on the podcast. 248-579-8686. Thanks, guys, for downloading the latest edition of Doc and Jock. Support our sponsors. We look forward to engaging in great debates. Talk soon, everybody.
This was locker room talk.
Second dick.
Sorry, Detroit. Didn't quite work out.
And all I can say is Detroit Sports Podcast scores.
I hear voices in my head. They counsel me. They understand. They talk to me.